Brian Kane, and I'm the manager of programs and partnerships for the Tulsa Higher Education Consortium. Very honored to be moderating this panel, and I'm also very glad that the consortium is able to host this today. So glad that you could all be here with us. We have four from school districts across Tulsa. So we have advisors from Tulsa Public Schools, Union, Jenks, as well as Broken Arrow. And they are here to, engage in dialogue about how to best support students. And that's kind of the goal of today's panel, is to build bridges of support. So find ways to ensure that students who are transitioning school are able to have a smooth transition to college, because that can be a very difficult process for students. And so definitely want to remind the higher ed as an opportunity to get your questions answered. So if you have questions about how to best support students, how to support students with major selection, we definitely want to use this as an opportunity to get those questions answered. And you all submitted questions beforehand, and those are great. So we'll be able to get to talk about all of those topics and a lot more. Before I introduce the panelists to you all, I want to talk a little bit about the consortium and what it is that we do for folks who aren't familiar. So I will share my screen and give a little presentation on us. Folks see my screen? Just a thumbs up.
You're on mute.
Oops, sorry about that. Thank you. So we are the Tulsa Higher Education Consortium. We are a collaboration of 9 colleges here in Tulsa, made up of 9 colleges in universities. And really our goal is degree attainment. So ensuring that students are able to earn the degrees in Tulsa. So we're talking about students who are graduating high school, transfer students, so students that transfer from one institution to another, and also adult learners. So ensuring that all the students are able to earn a degree in Tulsa and understand the process of earning a degree in Tulsa. What makes the Tulsa Higher Education Consortium unique is that we have several affiliate organizations, and these are organizations who really cultivate the workforce aspect of what the consortium does. And so ensuring that, working towards building a Tulsa that can work after folks graduate, they can build a career for themselves here in Tulsa. So I love explaining it to high school students, and they're like, oh my gosh, you guys do so many things. And so really love that we can bring together those two important fields of institutions and business industry in order to build a better Tulsa, and also to ensure that students are able to stay in Tulsa after they actually earn the degrees. So now we will do an introduction for our panelists. So for our panelists, we love to hear your name, your school, your role, as well as one sentence about your job that you love. So just something that, gets you excited every day that you're able to work with students and achieve. So our first panelist, I will pass it over to Gina, and then we can just go in a circle among our panelists, introducing ourselves. Gina Giddens.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. My name is Gina Giddens. I am a college and career advisor at Broken Arrow High School. And I think the thing that I love most about my job is that I really get to impact students' lives. You have students who have a great support system at home. There's others that are first generation. I'm a first generation college student. So I especially enjoy just partnering with students to just guide them through the whole admissions process and the timeline of how to prepare for college.
Thank you. And now we will go to Taylor Pride.
Great. Well, thank you guys for organizing this. I love seeing so many familiar faces on the Zoom call. So I'm Taylor Pride. I work for Will Rogers High School, which is part of Tulsa Public. And my favorite part about my job is working with the students and the families. I know that a lot of the students, whenever they're pursuing post-secondary things, such as, let's say, concurrent enrollment opportunities, I love being the one that the students come to say, guess what, I got in. To whether that's an internship program or Tulsa Tech, and being able to cheer with them and celebrate that. And I also love seeing alumni, especially recent alumni that come back to, I just saw a few of them last night at a soccer game, and they share about their journey and their post-secondary life. So those two things really fuel my fire, so to speak.
Thank you. Now we will go to Shanda Gibson.
Hi, everybody. My name is Shanda Gibson, and I am a college and career advisor at Union High School. My favorite thing about being a college and career advisor is being able to help guide students in the preparation for what they're going to do after they graduate from high school. We often say that students don't know what they don't know, and being able to help them get in the know is always rewarding. And also, I love working with my coworker, Emily Ashley, and also Carissa Stiles, who is also on this call.
Excellent. And Carissa Stiles, please introduce yourself.
Hi, y'all. My video's not working. You're welcome for that. So yeah, I'm Carissa Stiles. I just started here at Union High School in the College and Career Center in July. So I'm a college and career advisor for the REACH program here at Union. I'm so excited to be on this call because I actually came from the college admissions world to the high school side. So this is really fun to be with you all. My favorite part, I love getting to work with the students. And I tell you what, like there's nothing better than like Taylor mentioned, than coming in and like talking about something that excites them, that kind of gets them going. Of course, senioritis is upon us, and so that light is kind of dwindling a little bit, but we're going to keep at it because there are a few that are still coming in and getting excited about their future. So that's what I love about it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. And next we have Emily Ashley.
Hey everybody, I'm Emily Ashley. I'm the other part of the college and career advising team here at Union High School. I think everybody already said all of the favorite parts of the job. I think it's just that light bulb moment when a student realizes, oh, like college could really be for me. Like this might actually be able to happen, and watching that take place in their life and in their family's life and seeing those dreams fulfilled is probably the best part. But also the collegiality between our other high school advisors. I really enjoy working across districts to make sure that we're serving students the best that we can.
And last but not least, we have Paula Dennis.
Good morning. I'm Paula Dennis. I'm a college counselor at Jenks High School, and I also echo what everyone else has said. I kind of have a special situation in that one of my students from a long time ago is our other college counselor. So I get to work with her every day and see her impact students' lives the way that we all have. And that's even extra special in that I get to see it passed on and what she's doing to help students. It's amazing. I love to come to work every day.
Excellent. Thank you so much to our panelists for introducing yourselves and giving folks a little the opportunity to know a little bit more about you. So before we jump into our first question, just want a couple reminders that for the sake of time, we're going to give each question is going to be answered by 3 to 4 panelists, just so we have as much time to get through as many as possible. And then at the end, if a panelist wants to follow up on a question, add a little more information, definitely we can do that if we have time. And then also our panelists, we know you submitted questions beforehand, but please don't hesitate to drop questions in the chat as well. And we can also hit on those if we have time at the end, if you have follow-up questions or something like that. So excellent. I'm excited to get to our first question. And our first question we have is, as you visit with your students, what seems to be the largest hurdles they face in the college admissions process? And for our panelists, feel free to just come off mute and jump right in.
My camera's working now. Awesome. I'll start us off. So one of the biggest obstacles, this has been a little bit interesting coming in. I have assumed that the seniors know a lot more than they do. I don't know if any of the other college counselors here at the high school are experiencing that, but I don't know if it's because they started during the pandemic and were in, kind of virtual at the beginning. So I'm just noticing the biggest obstacle is, we've got a lot late to the game, and I just thought that more of our students would be more prepared. anybody else feeling that way. That's kind of been my experience.
Yeah, I have experienced that. You know, they are so in technology, and it surprises me sometimes that they literally come in and they don't even know where to start. They don't know how to like go online to a website and just look for the apply button. So I've seen a lot of that. And we do have the senioritis going on too. But we still have a lot of students even using like Common App, you know, signing up for Common App, which is interesting. But yeah, everybody's kind of scrambling right now.
Yeah, to piggyback off of what Gina was just sharing about, I've noticed that students really benefit from accountability. And I don't mean like slapping your wrist, like you should have applied last month, but more so just like the silent support that an adult can bring. She mentioned, Gina, you just talked about not necessarily knowing where or having the wherewithal to press apply online. And I know I had one of our top ranked students in the senior class recently come in and said, you know I'm going to apply to these 2 colleges and I don't really need that much help. I just want you to be next to me in case there is something that comes up. I didn't do anything. He had questions every now and again, but it was about an hour and a half and he applied to 2 colleges and knocked them both out. So that silent support I have found from any caring adult. It can be a college and career advisor like many of us on the call, but any adult can simply help them answer or interpret a question on an application.
I'll add one more thing, and I believe that's a lack of reality. Because sometimes a student will come in and they want to apply to this school, and I look at their GPA and I was like, have you checked out the requirements? Yeah. I was like, well, you know you don't meet a certain requirement. And they're like, yeah, but I'm gonna apply anyway. So it's like they have this thought that the requirements don't apply to them. They apply to everyone else, but not to me. So that's, you know, kind of letting them go ahead and apply, get that rejection letter later. So maybe some type of reality is formed, but I've seen a little bit more of that this year than in recent years.
And I know we're probably up on how many can comment on that, but to piggyback off that, I've asked students, why are you applying to this school? And they definitely don't qualify. And the student will say, well, I get emails from them. They want me to apply. So that's another issue that, you know, maybe some of the schools shouldn't be sending emails to students that don't qualify. I don't know, but that happens frequently, especially since test optional.
To our panelists, please don't let that arbitrary number of how many folks can answer a question I gave to stop you from giving some insight. So thank you for that. Any other panelists want to touch on that question?
I mean, this is the no-brainer, but I'm just gonna say it. It cost, right? Like, and I think especially this year with FAFSA being delayed, like the cost thing is gonna be a real big hurdle that we need to figure out how to overcome this year, especially. You know, I think we're gonna have a lot more students going to TCC just because that one is like the sure bet in terms of what they can pay for, since they don't know what that's gonna look like yet. But you know, cost and scholarship access is always, I think, one of the biggest obstacles for kids. So.
Excellent, thank you. So next question we have is, what are some ways we can help exiting high school students make decisions about what kind of majors they would like to pursue? So kind of the best way to counsel students on major identification and kind of in that realm of things.
I know there's a lot of great opportunities for shadowing and for volunteer experiences, especially in the medical field. I know St. John's, St. Francis, and Hillcrest, all 3 have summer volunteer programs for students, and that seems to be a real win in terms of exposing students to those types of careers.
I think from the college side, the tools that some schools offer, like the My Majors quiz and things like that, are really, really helpful. I know a lot of our college admissions professionals refer students to those tools online, and I think kids really do them and kind of gain a lot of insight from that. And so I think that's always helpful. And then I think when our college advisor or our college admissions representatives, you know, offer to make the connection with someone in that department. So if a student's like, well, I might want to do mechanical engineering, but I'm also thinking about architecture. And then that rep says, hey, why don't I set you up with, an email or a phone call or a Zoom with both of those? And you can kind of ask. I think getting those personal questions answered and the personal contact. I know you can't do that for all 1,000 kids at our school and 1,200 at BA and 1,000 at Jenks, but when you can make those personal connections for students, I think that is really, really helpful.
Any other panelists want to tackle that one?
I think our Prep U, and I know Union has the same, where we have in the fall and the different careers come and speak to all of the seniors. The seniors are allowed to, they select what sessions they want to attend. Those are always really, really helpful. Students appreciate those.
And kind of a little spinoff on that, Paula, is like when we have our college admissions come visit, sometimes they'll schedule different departments, people from our professors from those departments to come. That way we're able to advertise to our students, oh, hey, TU is here and they're bringing their business department, they're bringing engineering or whatever. And that also helps because students who might not have the opportunity to get to a campus have the opportunity to ask those questions here at their, at their home base, in a sense, at their high school. So we've had we've had a few of those, and those are always well attended and lots of questions asked.
I think something that would be helpful is to start 9th, 10th grade year with helping expose students to different opportunities. Like I just recently went into our TCC's aeronautics program, and we hope to take students there in the fall. But I just feel like if students can get more of a kind of a one-on-one experience or speak to an instructor from a program in person, that helps them to understand what's offered in a program or in a major. And there are so many things that, they've not even thought about or considered. So I just really feel like it's important to start planting seeds freshman, sophomore year and kind of not waiting until senior year to do that.
Excellent. Thank you. So the next couple questions will be related to FAFSA. Next question is, what questions are you receiving from parents related to FAFSA changes?
No one wants to take this question. I think the biggest question we're getting right now is, why is this not working? How do I get this application to actually work? How do I get my ID to be verified? We're not, at least at Union on the high school side, Gina is like light years ahead at BA with like all the FAFSA workshops, and she's crushing it. So she'll have really good insight. We are not there at all. We're not to the point where people are asking like, how do I read my student aid report? Because we don't have those or anything like that. Like we're trying to troubleshoot. We're trying to get kids to be able to actually submit the dang thing. Gina, lend us your expertise.
Well, I had a student in my office yesterday and today, and a lot of what we're running into are students whose parents don't have Social Security numbers, and they have not been able to either get verified or they've gotten verified, but they still haven't been able to complete their part of the FAFSA. But yesterday, I was able, one student who has been to a couple of our workshops, she came in and her mom had created an FSAID and it was verified. But yesterday we were actually able to log in so that her mom can start inputting her information, which she was so excited. I know. And so I think that there's some movement. I feel like there's some progress, but we're seeing a lot of that. And then we're just, we also had a situation this week where a senior came in and we just had to physically sit down with him because he could not understand why his dad wasn't receiving the invite. Well, once we logged in to his dad's FSAID, we figured out that the email that he was sending the invite to was not the same email that his dad's FSAID is set up under. So there are a lot of things that I just feel like, have to be taken care of in person and one-on-one. And so we've had really good response to our FAFSA workshops. We've had 3 of them, and we've probably had 50 to 60 seniors and their parents there at each one. And so we have another one scheduled for April the 18th. So hopefully by then, students will be, getting, something from the Department of Ed saying that their FAFSAs have been processed, and we'll have a little more movement.
Yeah, I think for me, last year when I did a lot of the one-on-one and one-on-two meetings with families on the FAFSA, I had the list of things that parents could bring, and then we could sit down, we could create their FSAID if they didn't have one already, and complete the FAFSA all in one sitting. With our undocumented parents specifically, it has been now elongated into 4 steps. It's not just a 1 meeting now. It's the student has to create the FSAID, wait. Parent has to create the FSAID as well. Those can kind of be together. But when, of course, with the undocumented parents, then you have to call. And I had one parent who started that process. They were calling for over 3 weeks. What we did is we emailed, we used their email contact form online, and we got a response within 2 hours with their case number, because we had to wait then for the case number, of course, then send that attestation form to verify their identity, then wait another 10 days. So I think it's the process. It is a huge equity problem that I know I've talked to our friends at Union about. I do not know how there's not been more pushback nationally about this, but students with Social Security numbers are being penalized for something that they cannot control. And it is a serious, serious issue. It's been weeks for a lot of our undocumented parents before they can actually do that final step.
Something interesting we had happen at our last workshop, we had like 2 miracles. Parents were actually able to create their FSAID and immediately get in. They got verified immediately. The financial aid reps were really surprised, but so we saw that happen. And then we also had a couple situations where parents were creating an FSAID and received the notice that it was already in use, but they had never set up an FSAID before. So they were having to contact the Department of Ed and be on the phone for quite a while.
So without moving on from that question, I want to ask the other FAFSA question, and it's how are you tracking individual FAFSA completion rates, considering all the problems you just listed, considering the pause? How are you kind of keeping track of which students are actually completing their FAFSA?
I'll start with this. Being that we have over 1,000 seniors here at the high school, it is almost impossible to keep up. We have been doing the reverse. We've been keeping up with students who've come to us and have an issue. That way we can get back to them to help them fix that issue once there's, a workaround, or that issue with the FAFSA has been fixed per the federal government. And I don't know how, especially with FAFSA being a graduation requirement next year. I don't know how we're going to do that. So if anyone out there in the college world has any help for us, we would love to hear that. You know, it might be easier for smaller schools, but even not that, because normally smaller schools are only going to have one counselor who's working with maybe 200, 300 seniors. That's still just like us here at Union. You know, between Emily and I, we're splitting 1,000 seniors. So we don't know how we're going to track. And the last, Emily, help me remember, but the resource that we used several years ago, was very iffy, because if a student's name was a double name, sometimes it didn't even show up that the student had completed the FAFSA or had started or whatever. And so we were losing that. So if the government can't keep up with it, how are we going to keep up with it?
Yeah, exactly. Like even the portal, as helpful as it was in some cases, really was not helpful or accurate in terms of like actual numbers. Because again, a kid would show me like, oh, I did it, and here's my confirmation. I'd pull them up in the portal, and it doesn't match the names when this kid has 2 last names, which, because we have a large Hispanic population, that happens frequently. And so, like she said, the portal's not even accurate. We couldn't even track it with that. So I don't have a lot of confidence that with the current changes in FAFSA that we're going to get any more accurate in tracking it on that side of things. Maybe we'll come up with a really good idea. I'm sure Gina has a really good plan, and we'll just all steal her idea.
No, I've been trying to use the FAFSA completion portal now that the Department of Ed released, but it's not been updated since January, so it's not accurate either. It's just triage.
Yeah, I've heard some rumors of that portal being relaunched later this month. I don't know if that's true or not. Once FAFSA actually starts processing and sending out those process applications. What we've been doing at Rogers is I work very closely with our College Summit teachers. It's a class that's dedicated to it. And I created a document that had the students' Oklahoma's Promise status, and then which steps of the FSA, or excuse me, the FAFSA completion. If the student had the FSA ID, the parent, and then the FAFSA completion. And so what we've been doing is we've been having our teachers actually hold one-on-one conferences. I know that other schools do advisory type things. And then we've been having that document shared between myself, the counselors, and the teacher themselves. So it's not super effective because there's a lot of variables at play there in terms of recency of the conversation, also just the effectiveness of the teacher conducting the conversation as well, the conference, I should say. But that's kind of what we're using as a placeholder until we get some data released.
Thank you very much. So next question is why is it important for students to meet with advising or college and career advisors earlier in that career? So kind of broadly discussing, what are the benefits for, say, a 9th grader or a 10th grader to come speak to you?
It's very important. I think I mentioned earlier, students don't know what they don't know. And if we can catch them earlier, we can help them more successfully with that process. Especially when it comes to what they need to be doing right now while they're in high school. If you're going into the medical field, but you're not taking extra sciences, you're not helping yourself. So being able to catch students earlier, get them exposed to more college and career readiness at an earlier age, just helps them to be more successful. And it helps, us in a sense, because our job is just a little bit easier in helping them with those final steps when it's time to actually apply to the colleges. So, but once again, that comes with having enough staff to do that. Thank goodness we were able to have someone full-time at 9th grade this year. So that's been very helpful. But, what about 6th, 7th, 8th? when they are starting to kind of think about, oh, I want to be a police officer. Well, what can you do as an 8th grader? What can you do as a 9th grader to help you get to your dream? So that's why they need to come talk to us. And that's why we need to get to them earlier.
Yeah, I want to say that, oh my gosh, our friends at Union are doing this very well. They invited us to be part of their 918 Kickstart. The whole event last year, it was during the summer, was 2 days, and it was targeting 9th and 10th grade students. And I don't get a chance to share this very often, but those students have had a lot more engagement with the post-secondary field trips and different opportunities related to their career exploration. The select kids that we brought to that they were informed. They learned about the process of applying, and they aren't being caught off guard with their GPA because we talked about those things. And I just have to shout out to Miss Gibson, Miss Ashley. Oh my gosh, y'all, they are doing some amazing work, and I have learned a lot from them about targeting 9th grade. And I know that 8th grade is good as well, because that way the kids start August of their freshman year with that knowledge of my GPA matters. And this is going to unlock doors for me down the road just by simply showing up to class and earning good grades.
I think too, with the younger students, you know, I try to have conversations about their strengths, what gets them excited, what their favorite classes, because some of the seniors too, but they're sometimes kind of clueless and they don't know where to begin. A lot of them just have their parents' voices in their heads, like, oh, I need to be a doctor, I need to be a lawyer, and they don't even really know what that what that marathon education looks like. So I think just getting them in and allowing them to talk, it's hard to get them to talk, but asking them questions, to where you can get that excitement out of them and play into that. That's the best thing that I've done, and it doesn't always lead somewhere, but at least it's a pleasant conversation for them, because who doesn't like talking about what they like and what they enjoy? But I try to start there and try to like pick up just a little nugget to say, maybe you should look at this and research that. There's a lot more hand holding with the college or the high school counselors with these students than I realized from the college side. I mean, yeah, like we were talking earlier, you can't just tell them to go apply. You can't just say, pick a major. What are you good at? Just do this. You really have to do a little more hand holding, as far as, don't assume that they're having these conversations at home, and because most of them aren't, but just like getting them to figure out what they're good at and encouraging them to kind of pursue that, is the direction I'm going with those younger students. So, yeah.
Excellent, thank you. So our next question is, how many of your students with serious mental illnesses go on to college?
Can you define serious mental illness? What do you mean by that?
Person who asked the question, please feel free to come off mute and to give some clarity there.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yep.
I said, can you define serious mental illness for us? Can you define what you're trying to get at there?
I did not submit the question, but I'm willing to help. And Dr. Nobles is on the call too, and she leads our disability community of practice. And I know that there's a huge increase of students with disabilities, all ranges of the spectrum. So maybe it's just ADHD, but maybe it's something more severe that impacts their learning. So I think I would just suggest maybe tweaking the question to what are students with disabilities or mental health issues, no matter the range, because they all have an impact on education. And what are those student populations thinking about as they apply to college?
For that clarification. I just wanted to ask because the program that I am actually a college and career advisor for, the students get referred to it first for mental health because there's an LPC for each grade for this particular cohort. So they're identified by a teacher or counselor for this program to have a counselor available for them at school. So I get to work with these students, and I mean, I would say, I don't know what serious is. The ones that most concern me are the students that have the IEPs that really do. And I know colleges have the resources for these students to get them into the accessibility office. I just worry about what that handoff looks like. I want to make sure that the accessibility office or someone at that school is aware that, you know, especially for some of the students that are going to need accommodations in the classroom for whatever their diagnosis is. My students that have, you know, severe depression or anxiety or are medicated for some other mental health thing, I feel like the counselors that they have here at Union for them do such a good job at resourcing these kids and preparing them for those next steps. They all know that they're going to go to college and find their free mental health care. I've talked to them about what that looks like. And so they know that I think it's encouraging them to learn to advocate for themselves. It's the ones that I know can't advocate for themselves that that give me pause. So if anyone has any other experience with those students, love to know.
Yeah, and I want to kind of add to that question so we can stay on this topic. And the question is, how can disability services assist the students? So what information is missing?
I'll just speak at OU Tulsa for a second. I'm the licensed counselor here at OU Tulsa, and I'm familiar with the accommodations process because I've helped people do that before. And you're right about that point about the people not willing to self-advocate for themselves and getting lost in the shuffle potentially, because we make them available in orientation, we advertise it. I'm the wellness coordinator, but it's like ultimately their own autonomy and up to them whether they're going to go and reach out and try to get help, or they can take tests separately with their ADHD or seek counseling support, or self-advocate to get other accommodations. And I just personally know that from not reaching out for help in college, it was on my own to do that. And you can get lost in the shuffle sometimes. And so about, I guess, like letting those students know, in my opinion, like, hey, there are going to be services available. Like, it's just really up to you to reach out.
I will also add to Jennifer McClendon, Oklahoma State. I am married to a psychologist, a clinical psychologist who's been the director of a counseling center, college counseling center. And I will tell you too that it's not always the students that come in that self-advocate, but mental health illnesses, you typically have a psychotic break during those college years. And so even for students that have a great high school career, sometimes there are things that surface at that point. And so I think being able to encourage students that, as something feels off or different, that they're seeking out those services. All of our campuses have incredible services ranging at various levels, whether it's, licensed clinical social workers or LPCs or clinical psychologists. The resources are there. And just like what Taylor said, we really kind of need students to seek out that assistance. I think the other thing that we see a lot on college campuses is that students that are currently medicated, a lot of times they get to college, things are different. And in that transition, they stop taking their medication, they feel better, and then things kind of fall off the rails a little bit there too. And so that's the other part of it, is just like really, I think, encouraging those students on that self-advocacy front. They're just learning to take care of themselves. They don't have mom and dad around to help them, remind them if they're taking their medication, things like that, or they start feeling better and they stop. So just some other things that I feel like we see a lot.
Any other panelists or higher ed folks want to speak to that one?
I believe Dr. Wyatt shared the resource that our community of practice collectively created. As a really nice infographic that we would encourage all of our high school counselors to make sure that that gets in the hands of our students that are on IEPs or 504 plans, because like you all had shared, it is so important that the students realize that it is up to them to request accommodations, to self-disclose. And so we have a wonderful staff here at TCC that meets with our prospective students. It's talked about in new student orientation, and they do a fantastic job. But again, it's back to that student. So it's just continuing to get that word out.
Thank you very much. Also, for folks on the chat, if you go to the chat, there's actually a resource that is really helpful for ensuring that students are able to find those, continue those accommodations in the transition from high school to college. So please feel free to download that. Okay. So next question is, what are your ideas for better engaging students on our non-resident campus to help foster a sense of belonging? So campuses where students usually commute, there aren't apartments or anything like that on campus. What's the best way to engage those students?
I have a lot of experience here at OU Tulsa, because that is that type of campus here. And it's like the thing I say often to people, it's what you make of it. And so it is about trying to get connected to the student organizations that are there. Often the programs that you're going to be in, you're going to be in a cohort where you're taking the same class schedule as your other peers. So it's about connecting there and, paying attention to the programming that we offer and to the different things that we try to help with those issues. And then, just kind of understanding the expectation a little bit too about the type of university you're going to and what you're going to do about that. And, is that the type of place I want to be?
We have a program at OSU Tulsa that's doing really well. It's our President's Leadership Society, PLS. And what I've learned from that is our faculty member who leads that, Dr. Basu, looks at what do students get from this experience instead of what do students contribute to the group. And that change in mindset versus needing our students to be really involved and president and secretary like a traditional student organization has helped him grow that group. They only meet once a month. There's not a lot required from them. The focus more is about what they gain by coming and what those benefits are for them.
Thank you. Any of our panelists want to touch on that topic at all? How to engage students on non-resident campuses?
I think once again, that comes to exposure. Third time I've said it, students don't know what they don't know, but at the high school, if you are engaging them, bringing them on campus for different events and exposing them to those things before they get there, they'll be more apt to join. TCC does a great, and I'm pretty sure everyone does a great job. I'm just speaking from experience, but TCC has several events throughout the year that we're able to take students too, and they get to see what it's like being on a campus that, you know, doesn't have dorms and you're commuting, and how they can be engaged, and showing them how it can be just as rewarding as going to, you know, a full-fledged four-year university. So the exposure is extremely important.
Excellent, thank you. So next question we have is, what is the best way to reach out to counselors about information regarding higher education opportunity? So kind of what's that, so for our advisors, kind of what's that point of contact that higher education folks can kind of reach out to you? And if
I'll go
that's
ahead-
as simple
I'll go
as
ahead and
sharing your
speak.
email in the chat.
Well, we get bombarded, or I get bombarded with emails, but probably email is the best way to reach out. Yeah, I mean, scheduling rep visits, you know, that's done online, but probably the best way to connect with me on things that are coming up would be email.
I agree with you, Gina. Yeah, we complain about emails sometimes, you know, you leave for just an hour and you have 100 when you only had 20, but that is the best way, because at least we know it's there and we can go back to it and get the information when we need it, and also when it is, when the time is right to pass that information along to students. So yeah, email is great.
Excellent, thank you. So next question we have is, I'm hearing feedback that not all high schools are putting ACT/SAT scores on transcripts. If true, why?
I will jump in here. We stopped putting test scores on transcripts once applications went test optional. And I had a parent contact me and say that her daughter did not get into school because we sent her test scores. We had not sent test scores. At that point, students could choose, yes, send my test scores on my transcript, or no, don't. And so my fear of sending test scores to a school that the student did not want them sent was enough for us to change it so that we don't put any test scores on transcripts. I did a lot of research. I was concerned of the cost that the students would incur to send their scores. But if a student is on free or reduced lunch, they get an ACT fee waiver that they can send their scores to the school for free. So it does not cost them anything. A lot of schools will also allow screenshots. And then we also, if the student is in a bind and needs the test scores, we can add them to a transcript and send them to the school. But I make them sign saying that they want us to send the test scores for that. With our class of 900 students, I was so afraid of sending transcripts and sending test scores in error. So we changed it probably 3 years ago, and there has never been one complaint, which surprised me. So I'm really glad that we changed it. And the FERPA, I was concerned of that. And I was concerned where colleges will say we can't unsee test scores. So that's the jinx spiel on why we don't put test scores on transcripts.
Excellent. I want to expand that one on the transcript topic. And the question is, how do you feel about admissions representatives requesting transcripts on behalf of a student?
Our students, Emily, you want to answer this one?
You'll probably say it better than I would before.
I don't like it. And that's coming from a school that has a platform that we introduce to our students. We use SCORE. Seniors hopefully seniors know that all they have to do is go and add their school to the applied column. We get an email and we send it. There's no cost, there's nothing. We used a program several years ago that thankfully we got rid of, but there wasn't a cost attached to that program for them to send a transcript, but that's what Emily and I walked into as newbies in the office. And to me, that was ridiculous. But it's easy for students to request the transcript. And if the student is really on it, and if they are really wanting to go to the schools they're applying to, they need to do all of the steps themselves. They need to have some type of accountability. And that gives that to them. You know, students will come and say, hey, you didn't send my transcript. And I'll look them up. I was like, well, you didn't put that school in SCORE. So do that for me and I can get it sent for you. So we would prefer that admissions reps not contact us about sending student transcripts, especially since we have a very easy method and platform in play.
I will jump in. I will say we agree with everything that Shanda just shared because we have a platform as well. But if we do get an email requesting a transcript for a student, we call the student in and say, do you give us permission to send this transcript? Why don't you go add this in Naviance and we will send it. So we always have record that the student requested it.
What I do appreciate, instead of like asking me for the instead of a college asking me for the transcript, I appreciate them copying me on the email to the student that says, dear John, we do not have your transcript. Please make sure you send it to us, right? Then that puts the onus on the student, but still allows me to follow up to make sure the student read said email, which 99% of the time they did not read the email. So it allows me to be part of the conversation without just adults doing things for kids, right? They need to learn how to do that.
I would agree. I'm going to jump in just for a second. They need to know how to request a transcript just because, especially whenever final transcripts are ready, that's the middle of June and weren't usually not available. And so they need to know how to request their transcript themselves. But if I get just a standard email from a college requesting a transcript, I will forward that email on to the student with instructions on how to request their transcript. And we use Parchment. But I have had situations where reps have contacted me because, you know, it's a scholarship deadline and the student didn't request one, and it's the day before. And I usually accommodate. I don't get a whole lot of those requests one-on-one from reps. But most of the time it's just a standard email saying that we need this student's transcript, and I just forward it on to them, to the student, and say, here, let me help you do that.
Yeah, in
Thank
a
you.
dream world for me, I would like for there to be as few steps as possible for the students. I know that they, of course, need ownership. But for example, we use Naviance for our transcript upload. We've uploaded all the mid-year transcripts there, and students, the same type of process as these other applications. They go in, they request a transcript, and then I have to go back in and then approve it. And I would just love that step to be eliminated so that the student has the ability to send it what I've already uploaded. And I don't know if there's some way in the future for transcripts to be encrypted and for students when they're applying to the college say, yes, I approve for my transcript to be sent to this and it to be automatic like that. I don't know if that's even a FERPA violation or what, but it seems like there's a couple different steps that have to take place.
Thank you. And I want to highlight in the chat, Ms. Markley from Tulsa Academy is saying that you can actually download a copy from College Board or success.act, and you can send it to colleges without the student having to request it. So that's definitely another good resource to have.
Brian,
yeah.
I was going to say, can I add on to that? We use
Please.
Naviance, and what we'll do is we'll upload it as an optional transcript. And the reason that we'll still go ahead and send it off at that mid-year, end of year, is because they still need it for placement testing. So instead of getting that second barrier of the summer, them saying, I need the ACT score, SAT score, we go ahead and send it off at the end so that there isn't just miscommunication and everything in between. And I've never had a college tell me like it's not official because it didn't come from the ACT when it, or we use ACT, we just download it, send it off, and there's no questions asked.
Excellent. Eileen, I saw you had your hand up. I think we have time for you to, that can be our last question. So you can ask that question and we can let one or two folks, one or two of the
I
panelists
too have a
answer that.
noon meeting, so I'm going to have to hop off real quickly. I just wanted to provide the perspective. So I'm sorry, I'm with Tulsa Community College, Associate Vice President of Enrollment and Retention at TCC. So I just wanted to provide a perspective from our view, what it's like if students don't have test scores on their transcripts. Because we are an open door institution, obviously admission is not going to be an issue at all. So that is perfectly fine. But where those test scores do come into play is for course placement. And it can be a barrier for students to not have test scores on a transcript, because we can look at GPA, but we also look at test scores. And sometimes some areas want a combo platter. They want to see both a test score and a GPA from high school. So we have so many students who present for new student orientation who think that their test scores are on their transcripts when indeed they're not. And I know that students can go to the College Board or to the ACT portals and download them. But again, I just want to always keep the reference of our students at the center of this. Sometimes that can be a barrier for our students as well. And believe me, I am all for student accountability. I'm right there with you on that. But my position is to try and remove as many barriers as possible for our students, to try and make it a streamlined, easy process as possible. So I don't know if there's ever a consideration for, so maybe Ms. Dennis, if this may be way too complicated, but when we're sending transcripts to TCC, I don't know if you can include test scores for TCC. It will not harm the student at all. And I'll just give one more thing, because another barrier is if we don't have test scores and the students maybe don't go to the portal to download them, then we require that they take another test, that we require that they would take the AccuPlacer. And again, that can be another barrier for students. So I just wanted to add that perspective and see if we can somehow find common ground on that.
So whatever TCC is doing in the spring, students come to us and say, I need my test score sent to TCC. So when that happens, it's a really quick, we just print the transcript with test scores and I send them to TCC. So I don't know how many that is, but I know it is very frequent in the spring. So maybe they've gone to orientation, and maybe I can tell them, if you're going to TCC, let us send them. But we do when they come and ask. I don't know, I probably sent, 40 or 50 last spring. So to Melissa. So
yes, great. So I just wanted to let that perspective get out there that, again, I completely understand, but from our end, it can create barriers for students. I have to hop off and go to my noon meeting, but it was great to see everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much to our panelists for taking these questions. Before we wrap up, I just want to remind you all that the Tulsa Higher Education Consortium is having our spring convening scheduled for April 18th. And that's an excellent place to keep this conversation going. And also, we are looking for proposals. So please feel free to submit a proposal and present on a topic, because you all are experts at something. Again, I just want to say thank you very much to our panelists today for attending this panel and answering these very important questions from our higher education folks. And thank you to our attendees for attending as well. And 1 minute over, but I will give you back your -1 minute. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. That was great.
Thank you.